Hey YouTube, so trying to do different things every day this week. So we've got an American telecaster, an actual Fender telecaster. So who is it in the comments is going to say it's not a real telecaster because it's got a humbucker on the bridge, in the neck even, but it says telecaster on it. So this is a US 19 Corona California, so a 2019 guitar. My pal recently bought this. I think he got it in a trade. I'm not really sure. It was set up really badly. So I don't know whether someone been modding with it and messing with it or something like that, but the truss rod needed... I'm going to complain about it, a couple of... Well, about this guitar, basically. The truss rod. Yeah, but I'll talk about it first anyway. So we've got a humbucker. It's got a push-pull pot on it, which splits the humbucker. It looks much fancier on the inside. There's like a... It's got a push-pull, which I'm used to. The circuit board stuck to it. And it's like, oh, there's a circuit board on it. What does that's quite interesting. It's basically just the tone thing. So I think what's happened is somebody's worked out that you can save $1 by, instead of getting somebody to solder the cap onto the tone control, you can actually just fit a circuit board that's got a cap on it, because that appears to be all it does. I might be wrong. I didn't have a good look at it, just looking at it and kind of going, that's all it's doing. Bizarre. So, a three-way switch. This one, weird. I don't know whether this is a common problem, but see the top of the bridge pickup, it looks like that this is possibly what happened. It looks like someone had tried to raise the pickup by like sticking a screwdriver under the edge of it and then levering it up, because the actual the bit on the top that hold on top of the bobbin was kind of doing that. The pickup was level, but it was kind of doing that. I don't really know what that is. Basically, all I did was I took it out and then I put super glue on it and clamped it and left it overnight. So it's now looks alright, but I don't know. I've never seen that happen before with a pickup, especially not in a 2019, which I still class as being brand new, really. Yeah, so it's a really nice. I don't know if it's really shown up. It's a sort of metallic-y. I don't know what colour you would call this. A red of some. It's a sort of purpley wine. I bet you it's called Beaujolais or Claret or something like that. You know, it's like. But it's a metallic surface, through strung on the back. Not sure exactly what model this is. So there we go. We've got our Strat. It's got the square type Fender tuners on it as well. It's very well. The frets on it are really good. I've got the action. I had to do a lot of work with a lot of thing in the truss rod. Right here, here's my gripe. I'll get that over with and I'll get on with the guitar. Where's my Allen keys? Right, I know it's American, right? So Americans like using imperial measurements, hence why I've got the full set of Allen keys, which I recommend to anyone having, I was going to say digital and analog, all the metric Allen keys in holders in order, and then all the imperial, inches ones on the left hand side in order. So this one is actually an 1/8 of an inch, or 1/8. Allen key's the one that fits, which is not a good thing, I don't think, because obviously there's an equivalent that's almost the right size. So this would be almost the same as the 2.5mm one. But my big gripe with that would be if you're using the 2.5mm one, which sort of fits in, it's a wee bit small, so it's basically just going to make the hex socket for it round, and then it'll be knackered. So worry about that. The other thing, which is even more annoying, is like, I'll just put the Allen key into the truss rod hole. No, you have to put it in with a long end. I don't know whether this is so people buy proper truss rods, like a Stumac or a Fender truss rod. You have to put it in from this end to actually get down, because the actual truss rod's the actual bolt's kind of here somewhere. So you end up with this wee thing, and you can't bend it with that. So I was using like a thing from my socket set, slotted over the top to get enough leverage to actually turn the truss rod, which was really fidgety and seems excessively annoying. It's also that's a very small. I mean, quite often it's a 5mm. Look at the difference between what you would normally you often find as where do I put that so you can actually see it in front of my face there. Between that and that, I mean, you can see from there, it's like that's a significantly smaller bolt. It's in there. Rant over. That was really the only thing I didn't like about this guitar. I think maybe that was why the truss rod needed so much adjustment. Because when the action was It was out here. It wasn't really, but I mean, the fact that maybe if the Allen key had fitted in the normal way where you could actually use it, it wouldn't have seemed as long. But I seem to be turning that forever. I probably gave it like half a turn or something like that, but it was like because I'm trying to do it with that fidgety thing and holding it in, and obviously been terrified about chewing it, didn't do it. Right, anyway, so, and if you can tell it's a real Fender because it's got the wooden bit round about there, although I had a Korean or a Chinese Fender, they made them for a couple of years and it had the wooden inlay. See if you see it, like if someone's rebranded a Mexican one or something like that, the fillet that goes there on a Mexican one is plastic, whereas it's an American one, it's wood. So if you're trying to sort out a fake one, if you've got a fake one or not, or someone's just put a different decal on it. The neck is, I mean, it's one of those things. This is a Telecaster, so spec wise, I think it's pretty much close to any. I don't know if this is an American standard or something like that, but the neck is like, if you give me this neck, I would say, oh, it's a Telecaster neck. It's exactly the Telecaster dimensions you would expect. I'd imagine that's a 9.5-inch radius. Was it a 10 Fender used these days? I can't remember. It's not the 7.25 anyway, and I don't think it's the 12. So I'm not even sure whether my wee stupid things from China would actually be able to tell you whether it was a 9.5 or a 10 because there's not that much in it. I'm going to go for it's a 10-inch radius. Somewhere in the middle, modern feeling. The neck's not overly chunky, but it's definitely got the Telecaster profile as opposed to the Stratocaster profile. A wee bit of roughness there between where it goes from the neck to the fingerboard. It's like the fingerboard shrunk a slight amount. I am being super critical of it because it's an American. I mean, I think this is a 1,200, some more than £1,000 anyway. So the fact that there's the fingerboard's slightly smaller than the maple there, you can actually as a slight ledge. I would not even mention that if it was a Squire or something, if it was a £300 or £400 guitar. But yeah, it's not. They're not infallible. Yep. So bridge pickup playing to the orange TH30, nothing on. Neck humbucker. Middle position where the neck is a humbucker, or okay, neck humbucker. That's it, split down to a single coil. I'm not quite ready to give this guitar back yet because I had to do so much truss rod adjustment. I don't think the truss rod's ever been touched. It's one of those things that when you build the neck, right, it's straight, so it's fine. So when you put the strings on, it's fine. But even on an expensive guitar like this, when the strings have been on tension on it, pulling on it and stuff, it does move. So it's like there's no point. It doesn't matter how expensive your guitar is. If the last time you touched the truss rod was 10 years ago, probably needs a wee bit of a tweak. It might not, but there's a fair chance it will because the wood does move over time. You know, after 20 years of being pulled on by the strings, you know, that's obviously pulling it like this. You need to use the truss rod to pull it back to being where you want it to be. Also, these things are made in America where it's hot, here it's cold, or humid, or not, or whatever way. You know, it's an adjustable thing. The reason it's adjustable is because that happens just inherently with wood. Yeah, so I think that sounds pretty much like a tele neck pickup. I'm not sure if you'd, I don't know, hidden that below tape or something like that and asked me what kind of pickups were in it, I would, and it was in split mode, I would probably think that was just a normal tele neck pickup. So in the middle position with it, my favourite one in a tele normally. I'm going to raise the action up a wee bit I've got it set up kind of like that Ibanez. Just when I adjusted the truss rod, it's been fidgeted with before. I'm going to let it settle to see where the neck ends up. I'm just worried that the adjustments I've made generally happens with acoustics more. You know, you make adjustments, get it playing brilliantly, and then immediately the guy's really interested and wants his guitar back tonight, so you give it back to him, and a week later they're going, "Oh, what's happened?" It's because the adjustments I made, the necks, I've maybe over tightened it, but the neck's not caught up with the adjustment yet. You know, it'll slowly bend over the next few days to take where I put it. So I've kind of, that happens with anything. If anyone who's setting up guitars, if you've had to do a lot of adjustment to a truss rod, you're normally all right if it's just a wee. If it's more than that, then better leaving it a couple of days. Let it get used to the fact that you've adjusted it. So if it, you know, it takes a couple of days for it to actually catch up with where you adjusted it to. And I'm going to bring the action up a little bit. We're sitting at something ridiculous just now. I think it's at 3/4 of. Yeah, it's kind of like 0.75 of a millimeter, and it's like that's it's too low. Well, and just not if you want aerodynamics, just a little bit, just a wee bit. I'm trying to make it do it there though. And then if you put so that's in the middle position with the humbucker in. That's the thing, if you're getting that slight spankiness on one fret of your guitar, it's possibly the fret that's out. But if you're getting an absolute even slight spankiness all over everything, it just means your action's too low, probably, or your truss rod's not right. So it's not like the fret job on it. It's an American Fender. It should be amazing. It is. It's fantastic. I need a tuner. Yeah, like Freebird. Reverb. Stupid tuner, I hate you. Neck humbucker. Next single. Bridge. Neck humbucker. Rat pedal. Both pickups with the humbucker in the neck. Both pickups with the humbucker as a single coil. Bridge pickup. Do you know what this guitar needs? It needs played more. This guitar's never been played. Even in the 15 minutes, or okay, not for the whole 17 minutes this video I've been playing it, but even in that, obviously I played it for 5 minutes, make sure it worked, stretch the strings in a little bit. It's getting better. You can feel it coming back to life. This is a vibrating thing. A guitar is alive. So when it's sat doing nothing, in this case, forever, because it's new, the wood wants to get used to vibrating, and the more it vibrates, everything kind of goes and it gets used to it, and it kind of tightens up and becomes alive again, gets more ringy. I mean, it's nice and ringy and stuff as well, but it's because it's a really expensive guitar. But see, after even just a couple of times in the studio, a couple of 2 hours playing in the studio in anger, I bet you this is 30% better after that than it is right now. I can feel it coming in. Also, the strings are doing the same sort of thing. They're getting used to being used. So I wonder what happened to the neck. Why the truss rod needed so adjusted. It's not what I would expect from something like this, like something as new. Well, okay, 3 years old now or 2 years old, but I would expect it. The better. As soon as I got it, it was that strange thing with the pickup being having. I think that's somebody's been poking with it. But I mean, I understand doing that if you bought a guitar for 30 quid. And it's like, oh, try and adjust this, not worry about breaking. If you're paying £1,000 for something and you're just going to do something you don't know what you're doing. I mean, there's 3 screws here for the height. So even if I'd never seen a guitar before, I would be pretty sure that if I wanted to raise this up or lower it down, there's 3 screws that I would expect did that. People are mental. Yes, I mean, it's lovely. I mean, the argument to be had in there is the Fender Americans. I like the Japanese guitars, and it's got a nicer finish in the neck than the FGN there, which is it's also 2019. So basically, you're looking at, for 3 times the price of that one, you get this one. I should probably be them. I don't like to do that when it's someone else's guitar. If it was mine, I would do that. But I mean, one thing I have to say, that the truss rod on this one, which you can actually almost see it there in that hole, is a nice big one. It's a metric thing, so it's pretty obvious, and you can actually see where the truss rod is. It's not my favourite truss rod. My favourite truss rod is what you got in the 70s. This hideously ugly thing. See, it's called a bullet. See, you can actually see whether your Allen key's fitting. But yes! Why don't they all have that? I don't know. It's like a 70s thing. Yes, they should have that. Maybe because it's a bit ugly, or the original Fender. Well, the original Fenders didn't have the truss rod there anyway. It was in there, which is. I don't know whether I would rather have the very small truss rod that's away down the bottom of a dark hole. Not for me, because I know to be scared of truss rods, because the number of guitars that I've had in, and you try and adjust a truss rod, and basically someone's been in there with the wrong size Allen key. You know, one that was just slightly too small. Because it's slightly too small, you turn it and it takes off the corners of the hexagonal socket, and then you end up having to have exactly the right one, and just like, oh, it's really difficult, and you're always worried about it. So I think that's a bad design, to be honest. Unless they're thinking as well, you've just paid thousands of pounds for a guitar, you're going to take it to a tech. You know, it's not a mistake I would make. Not saying I'm like a professional tech. I suppose I technically am. But nuts cut okay as well. It's a wee bit higher than I would have it, but not. It's within tolerances. Playing all the way down. I suppose I didn't mention you get brass saddles. You've got your traditional teletype thing here with only 3 adjustable saddles. So intonation, but that might be something about what a telecaster is. You know, it's like I never really had any issue with the intonation being wrong on the E and the A, or the B and the B and the E, but the D and the G, because one string's wound and one isn't. Which, actually thinking about it, if you go back to when this bridge was designed, the G string was a wound string, so it probably didn't do the same thing. What you've kind of got to do is set it, which what I did here, you've got to set it so that the D, I can't remember which way around it is, the D and the D has to be, so the D, you make it just slightly flat, which means that the D slightly flat, so the G is slightly sharp, and we're talking an absolute midge's bow hair here, not an awful lot, but that's one of the things that as a Telecaster thing you do get later on. You can get 6 saddle, but the original ones only had 3. But then it's that whole thing about why play the guitar when you could play digital. And the thing is that no matter how much, if you sample all the strings on a guitar and then play them on a keyboard, it doesn't sound like a guitar, because it's imperfect all the way. Everything's on it. It's a compromise. So that's an E, perfect. That's not a G. It's a G and a wee bit, and that'll be like a G sharp and a wee bit less, because it doesn't divide up quite as easily as that. You've seen guitars that have Steve Vai's got one, and the frets are they're not straight. They kind of do this. You know, there's also there's like an Nirvana compensated nut, which kind of deals with it. But I mean, that's what makes it. That's why a human voice sounds good as well, because it's not perfect. You know, it's like when you listen to the best singers. You know, your Freddie Mercury and stuff like that. They didn't have your auto-tune and all that stuff. Whereas if you actually auto-tuned them, it wouldn't have the personality that Freddie Mercury. If you know, obviously you could take a Freddie Mercury singing. I don't know why I'm going to him, but you know, a really good singer. The imperfections in the character give it character, which gives a Telecaster some part of its character. Is part of the fact of any guitar is the character of it is slightly off. I actually noticed that with the MIDI guitar. I've got like a Casio MIDI guitar, and obviously it averages things out. So basically, you're giving it, as I said, you know, the E perfectly in tune, the G. It's never on no guitar that's got straight frets is that perfectly in tune, but because the MIDI thing is triggering something, it goes, oh, it's just short of a G, it'll be a G then. So when you play things on the MIDI guitar, when it's coming through the keyboard, it does sound like a keyboard because all the notes are perfect. It knows that you're trying to play a G, so it gives you an exact G, whereas on an actual guitar, it's not an exact G. You can tune it, so it is an exact G, but that means that the E won't be quite in. I'm making it much more confusing than it is, eh? Yeah, so bit videos this week. I've got a shredder, a J-Pax one, and I would call it a classic, an American classic, and then I've now got to think of other things to do for another 2 or 3 days, so I can have a different type of video every day of the week. Rocking. Catch you later.